listening to The Kula Ring, a podcast made for manufacturing marketers. Here are Carmen Perry and Jeff White.
Welcome to the Kula Ring, a podcast for manufacturing marketers brought to you by Kula Partners. My name is Jeff White, and joining me today is Carmen Perry. Carmen, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for today's conversation and happy to be here. How you doing?
Yeah, same. Yeah, no, I really like kind of talking about marketers or talking with marketers that have different types of backgrounds that they're bringing to more B2B style industrial manufacturers. I think it's a really interesting experience set and, kind of an interesting career path too.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you can quite easily say, or it's easy to say, oh well, everything's different, and it's almost equally easy to say it's all the same in some ways. Like some of the underlying principles of marketing and persuasion, transcend B2B or B2C. A lot of some of the tactics do. It's always a welcome perspective when you have somebody bringing both to the table.
Yeah, and recognizing that both have unique and interesting challenges that there's some crossover opportunity for sure.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, so joining us today is Sean O'Brien. Sean is the head of global marketing and communications at Mott Corporation. Welcome to the Kula Ring, Sean.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Sean, we're excited to have you on the show. First off, let's learn more about Mott Corp, not the applesauce people. Completely different. This is, let us know more about Mott Corp, and how you ended up there.
Sure. So Mott Corporation is the leading provider of purification and process filtration across multiple industries. We play in some of the coolest ones in the space, from semiconductor manufacturing to clean energy and green hydrogen production, to oil and gas processing, to healthcare, to aerospace and defense. So we participate and contribute solutions to really most industries you think about. And it's really about handling and how do we process, purify, and control flow across all these different applications in all those industries.
That's remarkably diverse, which brings up a whole host of questions. But before we get there, how long have you been with them?
So I've been at Mott for about a year, and it's been a whirlwind. And one of the interesting things about it, before I got to Mott, I was with Stanley Black & Decker for about 4 years, and before that, Honeywell for about 6 years. So I've definitely been in the industrial space, industrial manufacturing space. But before, with Honeywell and Stanley Black & Decker, we also had a pretty substantial B2C arm. We were direct sellers, whether through e-commerce or B2B2C through retailers like Dick's Sporting Goods to Grainger to Tractor Supply. So a lot of different areas in the B2C and the B2B2C space. But the interesting thing is, jumping over to Mott, is we're a pure B2B player and pure industrial manufacturing as well. So it's been an interesting and quick learning curve to really kind of start making an impact immediately in our business, kind of thing. So it's been great.
And man, those are not just industrial companies, but very, very powerful industrial brands. I mean, Honeywell, Stanley Black & Decker, very, very well known. Must be interesting to consider nurturing and evolving a brand story for a company like Mott Corp when you kind of have that lens.
So it is very interesting, because one of the biggest things that I learned in my previous experience is become a true storyteller and really get out there and let customers or even consumers know, and it's more customers in the B2B space, about the value props that you're selling. What is your true differentiator? How can you impact a particular project or a solution to really help solve problems? And that's what I've experienced quite a bit at Mott. There's a lot of companies in very complex industries that are having dilemmas, problems. How do I solve this? How do I particularly attack this problem? And Mott does a phenomenal job of deploying engineering resources, domestic manufacturing. We make all our own products and really get after it, kind of thing. So it makes it a very easy story to tell. But with my background, I know how to do that kind of thing.
The thing I find interesting about that, you're talking about helping these other manufacturers solve problems. So in a lot of ways, you'd have to have a fairly strong brand with Mott in order for them to be aware that there's a potential solution there. Like, how much of what you're doing is trying to introduce people who've never heard of this type of filtration solution compared to really sort of having an overarching brand that's visible and considered by the engineers who might be trying to design around it.
So you're exactly right. That's one of my big challenges. We've done a tremendous amount of business and done very, very well the past 4 years because of word of mouth. It's been we have an unbelievable reputation. We're known for our quality, lead times. We can scale all of those things. So it's word of mouth. Now the key now is how do I start letting people who've never heard of the brand before really kind of embrace those kind of the kind of initiatives and things that we support. So a couple ways we do that. One of the big ones that I've really embraced, and I did this at Stanley quite a bit, is thought leadership. We have key GM leaders, business unit leaders, and I've really pushed opportunities for them to speak at conferences, events, press conferences, press releases, blog posts, social media posts. So I've really pushed my GMs who are very technical, engineering based leaders, that they're true experts in the categories they manage. For example, my GM for clean energy knows the space really well, is a key person to get information for, and I have him speaking at Hanover Messe coming up next week at the energy innovation stage. So key aspects are going to be so thought leadership is one of the big initiatives that I go down the path with. The other one, which I've started to lean in quite a bit with, is starting to. You've seen a lot of the trends, especially in the U.S., about the security of our supply chain and developing key suppliers that support security, national security, whether it's energy security, semiconductor security in manufacturing. So we are a big provider for that. And the most recent award by the Department of Energy that just granted us $10 million is really another way I can tell that story and tell the story about, hey, if the federal government can trust us, you can trust us kind of thing. So that's a big initiative for us as well.
I want to dig into that thought leadership component just a little bit further. I appreciate you listing out the various kind of components, speaking at a conference or an event versus maybe a press release or something that can be a little bit more, if you will, controlled from the central marketer, and then social media. So to me, I feel like there's different tiers of, frankly, control that the marketer can bring to it versus how much training is required or coaching or what have you may be required to get to that, to get to the point where somebody's maybe doing media availability or even speaking at a conference. How have you? I guess I would assume that the juice is worth the squeeze. Like getting somebody to speak at a conference is way more useful than getting them to write a blog post or to put their name to one. Have you thought about that in a more formulaic way? Do you assess the GMs and say, you know what, some of them are maybe a little bit more media friendly than others, or maybe just lean into that a little bit more? How did you go about it?
So you're exactly right. I think the biggest thing that I have to handle is really I'm very lucky because my GMs are truly experts in their field. They're engineered, trained, but also have a very good personality and are interesting kind of thing and speak very well. So from a media training perspective, it's been a very small lift kind of thing. And so I've been excited because I actually have some pretty good spokespeople to kind of handle that. But you're exactly right. The public environment is a much better solution because I can film it, I can edit it, I have content that I can develop through their speaking. Yes, the written blog is nice, but the other approach, which I think is critical, is that you can't do just one thing. It has to be a complete, comprehensive 360 approach. So if they do the speaking, you need to have the blog, the social. It's got to be a full 360 approach package specific to that. And yes, we might post on our own Mott LinkedIn page, but I also want them posting on their own personal LinkedIn page, because that builds up their influencer and their thought leadership strategy. But yes, you got to make sure that you can't just throw someone out there. You got to make sure that they are engaging, they're a compelling speaker. And I've been very lucky. I haven't had to do too much training. Let's put it that way.
I've had to coach some politicians in a former life, and I can tell you some were way better than others. It was brutal.
Yep.
Still scarred. That
I've
kind
got
of
PTSD from that. Yes, yeah.
But it sounds like you didn't encounter a whole lot of resistance either. Like, if there's one one side where you're willing to do it, and there's another where you're like, okay, yeah, let's go.
Well, it's interesting because the Mott has never done this kind of robust marketing or thought leadership before. Yes, we've had the CEO speak at a press conference or announcing a new building expansion, things like that, and before I got here. But I've really kind of ramped up, and so they've embraced it, because they also have identified the need to get us to the next level, and we really need to start building the brand, the people that work for this brand, the trust, and the expertise that we have within the organization. I think that's one of our biggest strengths. Is we're heavily staffed with PhDs to masters in engineering to process engineering. We have a team that can really get after it and make an impact, and solve. And it all goes back to the challenges that these process or engineers have with their projects, and how do we solve them, kind of thing. So it's the whole team has really embraced this new approach.
As we're bringing this brand more to life and telling this brand story, and it's coming to life through literally through the words from various GMs from very distinct business units, very distinct verticals. How have you navigated trying to tell a cohesive story? Because it would seem to me that the value prop within, say, green hydrogen might be very, very different than some of the more traditional categories that you play within. I would think emphasis on environmental sustainability would vary from one vertical to another. Just different things would be important to different people at different times. How have you navigated that?
Well, you brought up a great point. So we have different value props within each business unit, whether it's semiconductor manufacturing to green hydrogen production. But the biggest thing I go back to, and Mott's key story and key brand story is quality, speed to market. Our lead times are the shortest in the industry. Scalability, and on-time delivery. We're well over 95% on-time delivery with all our products. So that's a great fundamental umbrella to kind of dig our teeth into. And then the other one, which works really, is regardless of the business units that we participate in, we're also a turnkey solution. We can come in, solve an engineering problem, partner with your engineers, work all the way through prototype to scalability to delivery of large volumes, kind of thing. So those are fundamental core value props for every industry we play in, whether it's healthcare, aerospace, things like that. So
and then you can branch off from there, basically.
Exactly. For example, I was at the Space Symposium about 2 weeks ago out in Colorado Springs, which is a show, if you've never been to, which I had never been to, is really cool because it's all about rockets and space and moon missions and satellite missions and all the big players there, from NASA to ULA to SpaceX to Northrop Grumman. But the big thing there, and we had a booth, we had a speaking, we had a hospitality, but people came to our booth specifically wanting to understand what we're all about, and the fact that we make all our products domestically, we can deliver, we can deploy engineering resources. That resonated with people that have critical projects that can't fail, if you think about it. So that was a very compelling, and the message was embraced quite a bit at a very busy show.
And domestic manufacturing in that market can't hurt either.
No.
The current global concerns.
The only thing I just one funny story about that, I couldn't compete with one booth that was handing out lightsabers. That was a very popular booth, handing out lightsabers. So
And it's one of those ones that in hindsight, you're like, why didn't I think of that? I mean,
exactly.
uh, let's talk about the trade shows. Just kind of has me thinking, one of the different balances that you might be striking at Mott Corp versus what you may have experienced at Honeywell and Stanley Black and Decker is the um, emphasis on bringing the brand to life in those more closer to the customer environments like trade shows or events versus more mass market brand awareness, or investing in those kinds of awareness campaigns. um, have you have you have you thought about that kind of more general awareness for Mott Corp? It sounds weird to think about general awareness and green hydrogen in the same sentence, but at the same time, there are a lot more verticals, and some level of bedrock, if you will, awareness is probably desired.
So a couple things. Same thing coming on board, Mott. There was a lot of just basic blocking and tackling that I had to get after, and that is key brand awareness. Whether it's paid search to organic search to just very simple things that marketing 101 in the digital landscape that we had to fix and do. So that I had to fix and kind of address that. And we're well back on our path of really expanding that overall brand presence. However, I do feel there's an approach with trade shows, depending on the industry, that we need to kind of get out there and have visibility, because a lot of people are currently buying products from us. For example, at the Space Symposium, we had a lot of customers that, whoa, oh, hey, it's good to see you here, kind of thing, because they'd never seen us before. Same thing with Hanover Messe. We've never had a stand at the show coming up, which is, I think you guys know, is one of the largest industrial manufacturing shows in the world. And it's a great opportunity for us to showcase us as a brand, showcase our solutions to make green hydrogen more profitable and more efficient. And then I'm also deploying speaking. I'm doing a hospitality event. I'm also launching a brand new interactive platform that allows you to use a touchscreen to see how our solutions are in a hydrogen plant, and really kind of, wow, okay, you do all these different aspects in green hydrogen production, which is very difficult to do on a website. Let's put it that way. So it really allows me a nice blend of overall brand, start building up the digital awareness, but then also having a presence at a major industrial event like Hanover Messe.
One of the things that's really important when you're kind of going into new markets and trying to get the brand known and all of that is to begin to kind of personalize it to each one of the personas in those markets, and each kind of market has its own kind of dynamic, of course. So how do you think about that? You've talked a bit about how you kind of customize the trade show experiences depending on where you're going, but how are you thinking about that more broadly?
Okay, so you're exactly right. One of the big things that I spent a lot of my time, my first few months, is really defining those personas for each key business unit and really working with the team, looking at history. Who have we sold to in the past? I mean, Mott's been around for 65 years, so I have a good amount of history that I can reference. So depending, a lot of it, I mean, we sell directly to these program managers, these process engineers, these supply chain managers, because we can deliver and provide there. So what I've done is really kind of define those personas by business unit, and then start implementing account-based marketing campaigns against key and targeting those personas within each individual company. That kind of goes back to just doing some basic stuff. I don't have a massive program here to really target this, but I'm taking the crawl, walk, run approach on this one as we evolve. And the great thing about this is we can shift very quickly, we can customize very quickly, and really building that story that's catered to that direct person. So that's one approach that I've done. The other one, so that's a kind of a bottom-up approach. I'm also looking at a top-down approach as well, and that's more of an awareness campaign. I'm very specific with those process with key solutions that would impact them, but the top-down approach, I'm going more bigger picture and why that goes down that reliability, domestic manufacturing, national security as we're a key supply chain provider to the national security. So that's more the top-down approach and customizing it accordingly.
You had mentioned earlier about, I guess you kind of tweaked on this, and I jotted down the notes. And I'm like, if I get a chance to ask this question, I will. I wonder, do you find that there's just a really different emphasis on customers versus prospects in B2B versus say B2B to C, or how you thought about it? Like I think when you brought it up the first time, you're thinking, consumers, thinking about consumer awareness versus talking to customers. And I guess to lead the witness a bit, it's one of the things that I've noticed is that the more niche a B2B manufacturer is, the more they're basically only selling to other manufacturers very often. They can sometimes it seems like they're much better at talking to customers than they are at talking to net new prospects.
Well, that's actually interesting because that's been a little bit of a transformation for me. Because even when I was doing B2C, you're focused on the end user, and it's a shorter sales cycle. It's something that they're more of a repeat purchaser more frequently, kind of thing. So that's been a little bit of a shift for me, and something that I've evolved because I've become especially in the business that we're in, it's a much longer lead time. So yes, you need to focus on the direct customers that have purchased from us. And as I said before, we've had a lot of customers throughout our tenure. And how do we focus on that? But however, that's something that I've done more and implemented more prospecting. And because you got to keep that pipeline going. So I track it both ways. I look at new customers, I track at existing customers and how often they're purchasing from us. But then I'm really focused on that pipeline and what potential new prospects that we have. And that's new for Mod as well, because I think that's your long-term growth plan and those prospects out there. And there's a lot because, we're a good sized business, but there's a lot of people that don't know who we are. So I would say my split is about 50-50, focusing on existing customers and the immediate customers. But really, I'm about prospecting just as much. And I think prospecting, that's where obviously you have a digital initiatives, account-based marketing, but that thought leadership really helps with that prospecting as well.
And the one thing I think that a lot of manufacturers that are in that 60, 70-year-old kind of category range, and you can build a hell of a business serving the same customer base, basically. And you were doing so at a time when people stayed in a job for 30 years. So you sold it to them once, and then like 10 years later, you could go back. I mean, they were there. Whereas, it's kind of one of the things I think they're struggling with, or I think some manufacturers are struggling with, is that getting their head around the fact that their market does change out more quickly now. There is more turnover on the buyer side. People aren't staying in those jobs that long, and that brand awareness kind of walks out the door of your customer every day at 5 or 6.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we do a lot of business with the same person, even though they've moved companies, kind of thing, because our reliability is a key factor in them deploying our solution in their next project, whether it's with their existing company or in the next company. That's why I hammer that story so heavily, because to your point, people are changing jobs every 4 or 5 years, if not shorter. And especially in a lot of the spaces and industries we play in. So you're exactly, but it's critical that we maintain that consistency from a messaging and story so they can remember that, keep being reminded of it, and then carry that to the next business, which is huge.
I love a marketer who looks at the upside. Exactly. They
Yeah.
may be moving out every 3 or 4 years or 5 years, but they're often cross-pollinating into another prospect that you haven't sold into. Interesting. I'm trying to remember. Jeff is always better at remembering specifics than I am, so maybe he'll remember this. I don't know, but I think we interviewed them on the podcast. I'm not sure. Somebody I seem to remember who had a sticker campaign for hard hats because their idea was that they'll actually take the hard hat from job to job. Like, and so it goes with them, even though the equipment might not go with them because it stays in the factory of the place that they worked before. But
That was in our first season, I'm pretty sure. I remember the conversation, but man, that was 5 years ago. I've got
yeah,
nothing.
but it is. I love it though, right? This
Yeah.
idea of okay, people are moving around every 4 to 5 years. What's the social object? What's the marketing artifact from our brand that we can give them that they'll carry from workplace to workplace? Fascinating
We,
consideration.
you bring up an interesting point about that. So one of one of our best home court advantages is we get a lot of our customers coming to coming to our facilities in Farmington, Connecticut. And then they kind of can see how we scale, how we actually make the products, and it's amazing that their eyes are open. They're like, wait, this is what you guys actually have. So any chance I've never seen anything like that in my previous companies. Yes, we had people come to Stanley and Honeywell and the facilities, but we have a pretty cool operation in Farmington, Connecticut that I can showcase a lot of our capabilities, and the home court advantage definitely helps, and it works. And we get we get massive companies from SpaceX to Northrop to the U.S. Navy comes to Farmington, Connecticut to see how we operate. So that's another opportunity that I can customize the experience and really kind of showcase what we do.
Man, it sounds like you've accomplished a heck of a lot in 12 months in a company previously without a marketing rudder anyway. Sounds like they were well equipped on a sales and relationship standpoint for sure, but wow, you really implemented a huge program.
It's been full speed ahead. That's what I said before. I kind of hit the ground running, and luckily my training and the experiences at Stanley to Honeywell really prepared me for this, and applying these kind of solutions, because I knew right away, okay, these are the 5 priorities. Let's do these right now, and then slowly but surely ramp up, and quickly. And so it's not perfect. I got a lot more work to do, but it's really been a tremendous experience, and I've really enjoyed it.
Sean, as you as we draw our time together here to a close, I wonder if a little choose your own adventure question. Um, Either what are you most excited about over the next 3 years in this space, or what are you most concerned about?
Just a couple things. I think I'm most excited about the industries that we're in. The semiconductor manufacturing industry couldn't be hotter. I think the other one, which I'm super excited about, is green hydrogen. I understand the future and the importance of manufacturing green hydrogen and reducing our carbon footprint. That's a huge one for us. And then the last one is aerospace, especially coming off the Space Symposium trade show. The amount of energy and effort around space exploration and satellite getting satellites into space is amazing. So the next 3 years, just in those 3 industries, and I got a few other ones too, I just can't wait. And I mean, you read every day from the Journal to Financial Times, there's 4 articles so about any of those industries. So there's a lot of attention. There's attention from customers. There's attention from the federal government, and it really, I think it's sustainable. And it's something that I'm super excited about.
Hmm.
And so, and the great thing is we're well positioned to grow with those industries and really kind of build this brand up in a meaningful way.
Well, Sean, I look forward to watching it. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and this is a great podcast, and I was psyched to be here.
Fantastic. It sounds like you bring enthusiasm to everything you do. Thanks a lot, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Kula Ring with Carmen Perry and Jeff White. Don't miss a single manufacturing marketing insight. Subscribe now at kulapartners.com/The Kula Ring. That's KULApartners.com/The Kula Ring.